go to the library and read a lot of books. To be honest, the most number of books I ever saw in my life is in the library that belongs to this college. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of books on nearly every subject that you can have in this college library. I read Greek literature from here, I read English literature from here, Malayalam literature from here. In fact, I could even find books in German and Spanish from this library. And I always wondered, whenever I went to the long winding staircase, there were not many students who took the time to go there and to read all these books. And so when Ms. Radha called me a couple of weeks ago and asked me if I could come and inaugurate this, very exclusive literary and book club, I was very happy because you, my friends, are very lucky to have these many volumes to go through while you're here during your years of study. Not many students around the world have this opportunity to go and to read so many books. Saying that, how many of you read? Nobody? Oh my God. Okay. Nearly all of you read. I mean, trust me, this is going to be a very interactive session. I hate being the one standing there giving this long, monotonous speech like some Antony somewhere, like in Julius Caesar. I don't do it. Like, I need conversation. I cannot thrive without conversation. I need people to talk to me, okay? Yeah. So, nearly all of you read. I read, your teachers read, my mom reads, except for my dad. He only reads the newspaper. Okay. Yeah. There are some people who only read the newspaper, but the point is, we all read. We read notice boards, we read the boards on the bus, we read the newspaper, we read magazines, even if it's Vanita or Mahila Rangam, we read something. Like, we cannot live without reading. Even if it's an unconscious process or if it's a conscious process, whether you have to study or not, you have to read. And you have to write. You have to write down your name, you have to write down your address somewhere, you need to write down notes, you curse when you do your research project, you have to write and read in every part of your life. But what differentiates writers from people who write? Or what differentiates readers from people who read? Like you said, everyone here reads. But how many of you are readers? Or how many of you are writers? A person writes when someone else tells him, okay, hey, you're a poet. Why would someone call him a poet? Only after they've read something they've written and then said, oh, this is good, you're a poet. Until that moment, you don't have an identity that separates you from a normal person writing something to that of being a poet or a writer. When other people accept you, when other people appreciate what you have done, and then calls you, gives you a specific name, then you become a writer or a poet. And that's precisely why there are so many of you students who at home have a stack of poetry and a stack of stories that you have never shown anyone. How many of you have done that? How many of you write but you never show anyone? Everyone shows it to everyone? I'm pretty sure there are so many writers in this room. How many of you write? One person? 3? Is that it? 4? Is that it? 4 people write? No. Okay, how many of you keep it at home? Do you publish it? I don't eat people. You can like respond, yeah. The difference between me and you is that when I write something, I get to publish it and people call me a writer. You might be writing something better than me, but you might not be publishing it. So people do not know about you. People cannot appreciate it. Friends, one thing I have to tell everyone in this room is that if you write, and even if you think it's really bad, Give it to your teachers, give it to your friends. Doesn't matter even if they tease you. Show it to people, get criticism, and you will be better. Before you know it, you would be pretty good at what you're doing. This inspires me to say something else. How many of you have read or heard about Anis Salim? Yeah? He won the Hindu Literary Prize. You know his book. What's the name of his book? Right, Vanity Bar. Do you know how many times he was rejected? 13. 10 years. That's how long it took him to publish that one book, Wick's Mango Tree. It took him 10 years. He sends it to Penguin, he gets, this. No. He sends it to Bloomsbury, he gets this. Nobody publishes it. Same case with J.K. Rowling. After the Bible, that book has sold the most. She got rejected 10 times. Then imagine people like us who are struggling to get at least a poem come out in print. All these writers, they've struggled, they've cried and they've been frustrated, but still they try. The point is, if you don't try, you're not going to get anywhere. If you don't show your writing some light, it's not going to go anywhere. But still, these people tried, did not look at the time, finally got it published. And there is people like Kafka. How many of you read Metamorphosis? Nobody? This is appalling me slightly. Kafka. Don't you like Kafka, or is it too boring and depressing and suicidal for you? Well, it is pretty depressing, to be honest. But, Metamorphosis is written in German in the name Die Verwandlung. That was how it was called, Die Verwandlung. And at that time, Kafka was young, he was mentally frustrated, he could not be successful in whatever he was doing, he was suicidal, his relationship was a mess. He wrote a book, Metamorphosis. And then he died. After a few years, he passed away without anybody much knowing about him. And after that, he became quite famous for things. Really famous. Things like that happen. Like, for example, you draw like Van Gogh, and then Van Gogh becomes famous after he dies. Someone draws a painting called The Scream, and he says, oh my god, that's the worst painting I've done in my life. He did 9 of those paintings. 9. The same painting, if you go they're in a private collection, you'll find 9 of those, The Scream, all over the world. He did not like it, but ironically, he's famous for that one single piece of work. So it's not a matter about being famous, or being not famous, or being a good writer or a bad writer. It's about writing. It's about reading. It's about that passion that comes from you when you speak about writing, when you talk about writing or reading books. I know the purpose of me being here is to inaugurate this book club. Most often, what happens even in our school, we'll have a book club or we'll have a library. The thing is, the first few days you're all excited, oh my god, books. The smell of new books is amazing. I love reading books. And after a few days you're like, oh, the club, do we really have to do it? That's the kind of mentality that sticks in, because at the end of the day, we're all human. At the end of the day, we feel, okay, we shouldn't, let me take a break. And that's exactly what happens to writers and artists after some time. First it starts with a writer's block. Like one fine morning, you sit down to write and you're like, I can't write. Like I look at this balloon and I'm like, the balloon is blue. The balloon is red. Can you write like that? You can write like that, but then it won't get any appreciation, right? You can say, the splendid spheres of red and blue reminded me of the sun in a weird universe. You can say that and get along, pass as a fiction writer, but that one day when you have writer's block, you can't do anything. All you can see is the very literal meaning of the blue balloons, the red balloons, fluttering in the breeze. That day you become so disappointed and you're like, I can't write. You become frustrated. Your pen itches in your hand, you're like, I need to write, but I cannot write. What do? Okay, you're like, wait, we go. After something, you have a cup of coffee, you come back, or if, in the case of all these men writers who we call eccentric, they smoke a cigarette, they come back and they sit down to write again. They can't. Pages and pages of wasted paper. At the end of the day, you fly it around. Trust me, it flies. 1 year goes by, and at the end of that year, between that break, you have tried to write, you have failed miserably. Next year, you try again. But you realize you cannot do it. Then you stop. After 4 years, you meet all these people and then they ask you, hey, Ravi, or hey, Aishwarya, aren't you writing anymore? Then you say, oh, well, I really can't write anymore, you know. The point is, you become so used to that cocoon that you have created for yourself. So if you become a student, you go to school, you become used to it. You get married to someone, you become used to that person. In the same way, if you start reading, you get used to it. You start to love it. Or, if you don't read, then you get used to that. You don't like writing or reading anymore. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense when you come to think about how human beings behave. Because we model ourselves on what others do most of the time. Someone reads, you want to read. Or someone does not read, well, majority of class do not read, that you don't want to read. Or you get teased because you read. I mean, that's the most irony of the century. I get teased because I read. If I go to the library, people are like, oh, there goes a nerd. She's the bookworm. You know, you can't talk to her because every time she speaks, she will have 3 words straight out of the dictionary. I mean, it's not my fault. If you have read, okay, how many of you have ever used the word catastrophe in your life? So many of you. I mean, if you come to my class, by the way, I have 3 kids in my class, including me. One day, we got into a fight because I used the word catastrophe in class. I mean, you could have used the problem. Why did you have to use catastrophe? It's like every time I use a 6-letter word, my classmates want to slap me. And I used platitudinous one day, and then you don't know what I went through. And then all the time, every time you use a hard word, you get teased. And that's so funny when you think about it, because 10 years ago, this was not a big thing. I mean, everyone started using all these words. And then, right now, what people do is, that's a nice song. Oh my God, nice sari. The word nice, if I hear it once more, I will kill myself because it's so cliched. Nice, good, and words like that. So we sometimes fail to go forward, fail to change our vocabulary because everyone else is using it, so why should I change? This mentality has to change. It's high time that we change it. It's high time that we change thinking that reading is a bad thing. Reading is not a bad thing. I mean, yeah, you can become successful even if you do not read, but that success is very short-lived and that success is very dry because you don't have much choice or color in choosing what you want. The strength of character or the content of your soul, it really, becomes better if you start knowing what other people like you're thinking, what other people all around the world are thinking. Okay, now how many of you like Marcus? Gabriel Garcia Marcus. I see 1, 2, 3, yeah. I love you all, like whoever raised their hands, because Marcus is one of my favorite writers. And do you know why? Not because he uses magical realism, not because he wrote Love in the Time of Cholera, or Innocent Irendida, or Memories of My Melancholy Horse. Why I love Marcus is because of the way he has portrayed everyday life in a very majestic way. For example, I assume that you've gone through Love in the Time of Cholera, where, you see Chetan Bhagat, I need to put that in, Chetan Bhagat. Like, how many times does the character in that book talk to his lover? So many times, right? Yeah. Or you look at some other love story, Romeo and Juliet, oh my God. so it's like so verbal, the love is so loquacious. But for Marquis, the lovers hardly speak more than 100 words in that 400-page book. More than 100 words. I mean, imagine a relationship where you only speak like 100 words to each other. Hello, bye. You're like a crown goddess. That's all he says, like a few things in between. But you still fall in love with the book. You still fall in love with Fermina Daza despite her very stubborn disposition towards Florentino Ariza. You become angry when you think, oh my God, how can this writer describe her with a doe's gait and almond eyes and as a crown goddess? Then he goes away from, stereotypes. For example, what do you relate with romantic love? A rose, right? A red rose. All the time during Valentine's Day, it's red roses everywhere. Every flower shop I looked at, it was red roses. And at that moment, instant, I thought, oh my God, they should all date Marquis, because Marquis in that a red rose does not even come in. It's a white camellia. Normally, it is a symbol of adoration, but you give it in funerals. And I always wondered, why did Marquis introduce that white flower rather than a red rose? And it's such intense love between two people who have only met on the way. Like, he went to give a telegram to her father. He met her through the window. It was love at first sight. He just starts drinking colon and starts eating shoe flowers. Don't watch the movie, you'll die. He starts eating shoe flowers, and I'm like, this idiosyncratic behavior. This is very similar to Marquis. Like, for instance, you read 100 Years of Solitude, there's Rebecca. She has Giovanni. She starts eating sand because she's so in love with Pietro Crispi, a carpenter who has come in. She's so much in love, she starts eating sand. It's weird. In the same way, this guy starts drinking cologne. Starts like perfume. He drank like a bottle of perfume all by himself because he was in love. that whatever he has written may not be true, but you still love it with all your heart. And that's one of the success of writers, because only they can bring about, they can talk about yellow butterflies coming in whenever a man visits you. But at the end, what I felt like, I read those few pages, and those few pages, I believed that it happened, and at the end of the book, I'm like, I can't believe I just read that. You get that feeling. You know it's not true. People who hate fiction, but when you read it, you want to believe it, because there's magic, but you want to believe that magic. You want that magic to happen to you. That's the success of a writer. And trust me, all of us here have that potential. Not just in English, in Malayalam as well. If you read M.T. Vasudevan Nayar's, my favorite, again, Manya, Mist. If you read it, I always believe that he becomes like an Eskimo when he starts to describe mist. Because for Eskimos, for Inuits, they have hundreds of words to describe snow. We only have one word, snow. But they have hundreds of words. When the sun rises up, if the snow is a different color, they have a different word. If it is lying down, they have a different word. If it is on the trees, they have a different word. In the same way, M.T. has been very successful, very, very true in describing the mist that comes in whenever, Vimala is having, different thoughts in her mind. The mist changes. Just like Marcus has done in 100 Years of Solitude, when he starts describing the atmosphere, the scene, and he sets the scene. Same way, our writers are not far behind. Our writers are amazing when it comes to these techniques. The problem is, from Spanish to English, Edith Grossman has translated Love in the Time of Cholera and 100 Years of Solitude without being lost in translation. But when our masterpieces like Mist and other books get translated, we lost a lot. Because imagine, how can you translate the concept of puja? How can you translate the concept of prasadam? How can you? You can say the offering from the temple, you can say that. But will you get the feeling of prasadam being given by the priest? When you write offering, I receive the offering from the temples and the priest, you don't get it, because we are so rooted in our culture. Our culture is so vibrant and diverse and so unexplainable that when you translate, most of its essence and soul is lost. That's exactly what happens when you read translations as well. For example, for Kafka, the title of the book does not mean metamorphosis. It means transformation. Verwandlung is transformation. It's not metamorphosis. And then in that piece, the other thing the translation we know is, they say he turned into a giant, some insect. Gives the name of an insect, I think, and most of the books portray it as a ladybug. But in the German version, what it says? It just says a vermin, a giant vermin. Does not say what it is. It does not say what kind of creature or species it is. But it says vermin. Such things become diluted as we translate this into that. Translate from one language to the other. And very few translators can keep the essence. Like for instance, War and Peace. All happy families are alike, but all unhappy families are unhappy in their own way. Russian literature more or less has become intact because we have taken to loving Russian and loving German. But most of the time, for example, Italian and Spanish, Fernando Paso, we lost most of Pablo Neruda. We lose most of what we would like to have. And that's why most of our writers fail to get all these awards. Like Rabindranath Tagore got the Nobel Prize for Literature. After that, how many writers of Indian origin have received that prize? It's not because we are not capable. It's not because we don't know. It's because we do not have the resources that can keep what we have intact and not transfer it without losing much, and showing it to the people so that when I say, here, we have something much more valuable than you have ever seen. Because of that, not because of nothing else. And in the same way, people fail to understand how important language is, and how much tragedy of this translation of a single word can cause. Have you ever heard of the term mokusatsu? Have you ever heard? Mokusatsu. Anybody? Will you believe me if I said this word is the reason why the USA dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? This word. Because America, I'll tell you what happened. America sent a letter in a telegram message to the Japanese government saying, we are going to, if you do not withdraw from war, we are going to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, you know what this went to the Japanese embassy. They intercepted a message, and then they got a reply from the ruler in charge, and then they sent it back to America saying, this is what it said. Mokusatsu. The American translator therefore it, Mokusatsu. Opened the dictionary, looked at the word, and wrote, some things the men do not care, they don't have nothing, they don't care. That's how he translated it. But Mokusatsu in Japan is a colloquial term. It's like no comment. It meant no comment. It was a very neutral word. But by the time it was translated, it had escalated so quickly that in a few days, in 10 days' time, Hiroshima and Nagasaki was formed. Because of that word. Imagine the power of language. Imagine how much it can affect our daily life. People in Japan are still suffering because of that one word. Imagine the potential that language can have. And that's exactly why they say 10 is mightier than the sword. Because when you write, when you speak, when you think, you all think in words and images. And by the time it's transferred, the way it is intercepted by people is different. And the effect it has is huge. And that's exactly what happens to politicians, because right now, they say something, media intercepts in a different way. It's probably not what they wanted to tell people. By the time it comes back to them, the ant has become an elephant. It's become so huge, and then he has to give a long explanation. I feel sorry for him every day. Because every time you open the TV, switch on the TV, but sir, you did not say you have to do it. You said you were going to do it. So this going to and you have to have so much difference. See, this is what happens in court as well. Like, for instance, the witness says, I was not there. Then the other lawyer comes, you said I was not there. Last day you said you had not been. So, you deserve punishment. Finally, you don't have anything else, no other point to say, you start correcting each other's grammar. That happens all the time. It happens, especially in my class, during a heated conversation, we don't care about grammar. Normally, words play together so that, people understand the message, and finally we start correcting each other's grammar towards the argument. That's exactly what happens these days. Why? Because we don't have strength of vocabulary. We don't have strength of phrases. We don't know what to say. You can only develop it, or if you listen to the language, or you fall in love with the language. I think people are falling asleep at the back. Anyway, I do hope that the literary and book club that I inaugurated today will continue to work and will continue to have so many members. I hope so. And that all of my dear friends, yes, if people who are reading, continue to read, and people who have not yet understood the value of books and how much pleasure and entertainment that they can give, that they start to read and fall in love with all the great writers that you have in your wonderful library. Before I end my speech, I would like to recite a poem that I wrote. It's called The Act, and it's about an act actress. There are so many actresses, talented, beautiful as they are, who do not act in real life. They forget to act in real life. And this is about that. I hope you like it. The act. Hands fall down from under her face, rounding air in agonizing ways. Eyes forget, lashes forget to follow the blue, as sight changes direction and sticks like glue. Round her skirting wrists fall glitter, like a butterfly she dances and jitters. From one sky to another, heart to heart, combines beauty as she forgets her part. Tears fall down onto the sapphire stones, and she falls from under her bony bones. Claps come past, shouts arise, as the soul of the story bids her life. Eyes wide open, surprised, lashes apart, as the coffin arrives with him on the cart, and the happy, cheerful actress cannot act and act in the life that she's got. Before I end, I would like to thank Ms. Radha, who took all the initiatives to invite me over here, and especially to Ms. Shirley, the principal, who invited me to the other college, Men's College, about a year ago to inaugurate the women's cell there. And it was a wonderful opportunity, and I really loved it. I still think about it. And let me tell you, I'm so glad to be here in your midst, in that college with my parents, so we had time to spend it. I'm almost getting emotional. It's quite, it fills my heart with so much pride that I can be here with all these wonderful people and who encourage me and support me. It's a great, pleasure. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask now. Or if someone would like to share an opinion on reading, please do, because that's the only way that you can impart what you have to others. Would anybody like to read out their poetry? It does not help to be shy, trust me. I did speech classes with Mr. Denzel, who was one of my favorite teachers. He was a British person, he was an Englishman who was an excellent orator and he was an excellent music teacher. You know what he told me? One day, I got him practicing cello. And so I went there and I said, "Sir, why are you practicing everything so well?" And you know what he said? While I am, sitting there not doing anything, there is someone behind me who is working day in and day out to come up and become the best. While my friends, you are sitting idle because of something as trivial, something so unimportant as shyness in your own group of students and friends, there are people outside who do not care what people think about. They don't care what their friends think about. They don't care what the world think about. They want to be successful. They're trying for it. And because you're shy, you should never stop yourself from showcasing what you have inside you. Because only you know what is separating you from crossing that wall called shyness into becoming successful. So please, if anybody would like to share their ideas, please feel free and come forward. I do hope you don't disappoint me. I should look up to you. You're my seniors, and I'm pretty sure so many of you write excellently, and I'm pretty sure you'll have something to say. Anybody? Please? I see people smiling. I hope they stand up and speak. Doesn't matter if what you wrote is not good or something good. You cannot be the judge of poetry or writing. There's no judge because it's you who write. Let's really start at this.
there's this hesitation to come forward and do it, but I do hope and I wish all the best for this literary circle, which I'm sure is going to create great writers and readers out of you. I am very thankful to college management for having invited me here. I do hope I will have a chance to come here more often. Thanks a lot and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Aishwarya, for inspiring all of us. Now, it's the time for felicitation. I invite our librarian, Srimati Radha I, to convey her felicitations.